has all been called in. They are on standby in case there are suspicious items that are found. Also, as we said, no threat to report at this time. The police department here is monitoring the national alert level as well. LAPD officers, in addition to that, have been told that once they get off of their shift, they are not to leave until they get the okay to do so. And right now I'm going to show you a picture of Parker Center, where in about half an hour from now, Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa, Sheriff Lee Baca, and LAPD Chief William Bratton are expected to brief us on not just what LA's response is to the bombings, but how we are going to be taking security measures, what they know so far, whether anybody should be alarmed. But so far, LA, downtown LA, coming alive right now, people walking to work, people driving to work. So far, absolutely no need to be anything except a little bit cautious on your way into work. And of course, we'll try to bring you the latest as we get it. Live in Parker Center, Gina Kim, Today in LA.
Okay, Gina, thanks for that. And stay with the Channel 4 News for continuing coverage on the attacks. We will continue to follow any developments and bring them to you live.
It is back to school today at Jefferson High in Los Angeles, but this term starts with a lower enrollment. Officials don't want a repeat of the
right now, as planned, in Glen Eagles, Scotland, some 500 miles from London. So.
And in his mind, he believes that these attacks were coordinated to go in line with the start of the G8
to coincide
summit,
with that opening.
coincide with that, and who knows at this point. Of course, as the investigation continues, we'll get more information. But right now, we want to get information on our weather. We're going to obviously shift gears entirely here, but Rick Dickert, life goes on here.
Yeah, we got Hurricane Dennis.
That's right, Hurricane Dennis and local. Soon. So what we've seen is perhaps it could have been worse.
It absolutely could have been worse. The tube is a very dangerous environment. You're very deep underground. There have been terrible fires in the tube in the past. The emergency personnel there take it very seriously, and they're very, very professional. But it is a tough environment to save lives in the middle of some kind of disaster.
Well, we're talking about tunnels that were initially dug in the 1850s, a system that opened in 1863, the world's first subway. So I imagine, certainly at that time, there weren't thoughts about this kind of situation. So I imagine it makes it very difficult for the rescue teams to do what they need to do.
It does. And the unexploded ordnance or unexploded bomb, I wouldn't be at all surprised if they find more of them. In Madrid, there were about, I think, 13 bombs that went off and about 6 that didn't go off. So there may well be more out there that didn't go off or haven't gone off yet.
So, but the ominous thought here is that you have people who planned this, executed it, who are alive and well, watching this CNN broadcast right now, potentially.
I think it's quite likely. And the security services in London are going to be pursuing every possible lead to find those people. They had a number of groups and individuals under surveillance. They've had some major takedowns and some plots that they've thwarted. London has been a very active area for counterterrorism operations in the last 5 years. And so the security services will be upset that they let this one slip through, but they're going to turn over every stone, I'm sure, to find out who did it and take them down before they can strike again.
Richard, you've worked these problems from the inside. We have a statement that was just handed to me from Michael Chertoff, Secretary of Homeland Security, and he talks about, of course, sympathy and condolences to those who were victims of this attack. But then he says, we do not have any specific intelligence indicating this type of attack is planned in the United States, but we are constantly evaluating both intelligence and our protective measures, and we'll take whatever actions are necessary. What are the necessary actions right now, you think?
Well, certainly there will be heightened security at transit systems throughout the country. The security at these transit systems is not federal responsibilities. It's the state and local responsibility, or it's the transit police responsibility in each local area. So the Department of Homeland Security will be communicating with those agencies to try to ensure that they're at heightened level of vigilance, but it's probably unnecessary. They're all watching the news too. I think they'll be taking the same reaction that would be done even if the federal government hadn't been having big meetings right now. So there will be heightened vigilance at U.S. transit systems today, in part to make sure there are no attacks here in the U.S., and in part to reassure the traveling public that the government is on top of it.
Well, is the government really on top of it, though, do you think?
Well, it's a good question. After Madrid, a year and a half ago, we did a pretty careful study. I was still in government at the time, of our rail security and transit security systems. And frankly, we spend an awful lot of money on air security, about $6 billion screening passengers at airports, and a tiny fraction of that, about $50 million on transit security systems. So the federal government's presence in surface transportation system security is really very modest. And I think people will be asking again today whether that should be expanded.
Well, I mean, they call it the Transportation Security Agency, but it's really a misnomer, isn't it?
It's really an aviation security agency. And that's a function of where the Congress set the deadlines and imposed very specific mandates. There were no statutory mandates for the federal government's intervention in surface transportation, only in air transportation.
Richard Falkenrath, stay close. We'll be back in touch with you as the day progresses.
Thanks, Miles.
An update of sorts, if we can get to it. 45 people dead. That report coming from ITN this morning. It is expected, though, that all the numbers you're going to hear of the dead and the injured are quite fluid, because as we have heard from the scene, there are some bodies that remain in the tunnels where there is access to them, but it is now a crime scene. And so as the investigation progresses, they will then be able to move those bodies. So the number we're getting from ITN, 45 people dead, that number, one would imagine, will change. The question, of course, today and now, and as of this morning, who did it? Nick Robertson has been tracking and dealing with many of these groups, and he's in Atlanta this morning. Nick, there's a group that's taking responsibility, but it's a group that no one's ever heard of.
That's right. They're calling themselves a secret group of Al-Qaeda's Jihad in Europe. Their claim was posted on a website used by radical Islamist groups. However, anyone can post anything to that particular website. So the very fact that the website's been used before for such types of claims is not an indication that this claim or this group is verifiable. Indeed, at this stage, we haven't been able to take this verification any further. But what this group claims on this statement, they claim that they have perpetrated this attack in London against the British government, who they accuse of being crusaders. They say that this is revenge for the massacres they claim that the British government is responsible for in Iraq and Afghanistan. They praise what they call their Mujahideen fighters. They indicate that this operation has been in planning for some time. But again, this group, we have not heard of them before. The secret group of Al-Qaeda's Jihad in Europe has not been heard of before. This website has been used by such claims, but not an indication that there is any truth or verification behind this particular claim. Terrorism experts we have talked to so far today say there are certainly indications that this particular attack bears the hallmarks of Al-Qaeda and Al-Qaeda related groups' attacks in the past, in that it appears to have taken a good degree of planning, it appears to have taken a good and intense degree of preparation, and that it was carried out in a coordinated way at a number of different explosions over a relatively short period of time in a relatively small pace, in a relatively small area. So the hallmarks, experts are telling us, the hallmarks of this attack bear the symptoms of Al-Qaeda. This group claims to be an Al-Qaeda or Al-Qaeda related group, but again, no verification of this particular claim at this time. Soledad.
Nick, after the question who, of course, the question is how. And when you hear some of the details, especially, I guess, the descriptions by eyewitnesses, are investigators, even at this early hour, able to piece together what may have happened? I mean, is it a series of suicide bombers on board the trains or on board a bus? Is it something that's remotely detonated somehow that would cause multiple explosions? Any information from investigators on that yet?
We're not hearing anything officially from any of the investigators. The only indication that we've had so far was an unofficial report at a very early stage by the fire services in London, and this was a conversation that they had with an emergency responder group that deals with chemical, biological and radioactive incidents as part of the emergency planning for London. The fire service in London saying that there was no radiological element associated with this particular attack. Further than that, we have not heard from the security services that are sifting through the wreckage. We do know that the sites have now been turned from rescue sites into crime scenes that are being investigated. The very fact, however, that some of these attacks, 3 of them, occurred bombs apparently detonated on underground trains in London, is an indication that perhaps, unlike the attack in Madrid and other bombs that are used